Hey, my name is Dan Chmielinski. People like to call me Chimy, and you can too. And here are 5 ways to instantly improve your bass lines. I put together a course that kind of covers the gamut of what I think is important as a walking bassist, as a bassist with a good fundamental, solid quarter note feel. And we'll tackle everything from the rhythmic aspect to the harmonic aspect to the artistry of the instrument. We're going to tackle all these concepts and much, much more in this course, as well as just me taking some courses, demonstrating different concepts, transcribed for you so that you can play along at home. A variety of styles, a variety of tempos, it's all in there, it's comprehensive, and I definitely implore you to check it out today. We're going to take a look at some material from that course now, but let's talk about a few quick tips that I would recommend to you to instantly improve your lines. My first recommendation to you would be to be really intentional about the length of your quarter notes. We have a lot of power as bassists to move the tempo, move the feel, and control the band just by choosing a long or short quarter note. Now we're going to talk about the second rhythmic aspect, which is the actual length of your notes. People do not talk about this enough. It frustrates me because it's one of the key tools that we as bassists have, is to define shorter notes versus longer notes and actually use them to dictate the tempo and feel of the band. If I'm swinging out on an F blues and everything's tipping and everything's feeling absolutely great and I'm just sitting in the pocket with my drummer, I want those quarter notes as long and as juicy and as sustained as I can make them. So if I drew out the curve of the note, I'd want it to look like this. Just kind of always floating above the middle line. So not punchy, not kind of, articulate. It's just very, very, very steady and thick and sustained. So the only disruption to the note that I want is that attack, which I've defined and I've chosen, and I've made a conscious decision to make it sound like that. That should be the only disruption. Now, we can use different note lengths to our advantage and use them interchangeably with those long notes to achieve a different effect. So what do just short notes sound like, and how do we make them happen? Now, you'd never actually walk like that, but maybe in an older style, if you're doing like a really punchy kind of like bassy style chart, perhaps. But we can use those notes in the middle of those longer sustains to actually drive the line forward. Check this out. Now, what does that do, that space? What does that added little lilt, if you will, in your line do for the whole band? In my opinion, it drives it forward. It's going, And I do recommend that when you're practicing with a metronome, having it on all 4 quarter notes certainly has its benefits for establishing you keeping your own internal time, but eventually it would be great if you could just have it click on 2 and 4, because that is the very, very feel of what we're doing. So short, long, right? And how do we get that kind of dead note sound? How do we get it as punchy as that? It's not actually as easy as it looks, and you have to put some time into it because it involves both of your hands. So just try this with me. Play short, long, and see if you can get the short as punchy as possible. It's tricky, right? Let's break this down into absolutely slow motion so we can see what is happening. When I stop a note, it's a two-fold process. I'm releasing my hand here, and I'm deadening the string with my finger here. Now Now let's see if we just do one of those things. I'm not going to deaden the string with my right hand, and I'm just going to release on my left hand. Right? If you're going to get that, you have to stop it with your right hand. Or you get that. Does that make sense? So the actual motion and sequence of events is play the note, deaden the string, and then release. Now, you can keep your hand down and just deaden the note, but it's a little bit of a different feel. For me personally, I like to do both, and I think on lower notes it's even more important because you could get some slappy kind of fingerboard sounds that you don't necessarily want that will disrupt the clarity of your line. So a proper deadening of the note approach is stop with your right hand and release with your left hand. And by the way, what I just did there, that's wrong. Don't release like that. It really should just kind of be hovering. To the point where maybe at home as you're watching this, it almost doesn't look like I'm picking up my fingers on the left hand. But I am. They are hovering above the string. What you learn about bass playing in general is that it's a series of very, very small motions. The more extraneous things that I introduce into my playing, the more distance, literal distance from the instrument that I have with my fingers, it's going to hinder the time. It's going to hinder the feel of things. And so that kind of a micro, approach to just making sure that I'm getting the cleanest separation is going to really be worth your time. So I implore you to take the time to play soft, practice soft, and get that motion as clean as you can. The next tip would be to practice walking soft, often with a metronome. If you can do it on just 2 and 4, great, but also on all 4 quarter notes has its benefits as well. Talking more big picture about walking bass, my goal is always to try and support. That is always what I'm doing. Support the instrument, support the group, support the song while being as melodious as possible. And we're in the rhythmic aspect right now. We'll get into the harmonic in a moment, but the rhythmic aspect of that is making sure that your notes from note to note sound exactly the same. If you have the ability to make all of your quarter notes timbrally sound the exact same, you've won the game. And the best exercise for this is to set a quarter note metronome and just try to play along with it and see if you can get your notes to just sound exactly one by one, to the point where you could chop them up and you'd have a hard time telling which one is which. So choose a note that's comfortable for you. Let's do C on the A string. Now what I'm listening for is, maybe in the first couple notes I'm listening to just the attack. That little wood sound of your finger hitting the fingerboard and that snap of the string is such a quintessential sound of a good meaty walking bass that I want to just hyper focus on that. And there are changes that you can make to make that better or softer or worse, or however you're viewing it. You can change the sound by where your finger is meeting the string. So maybe I want to try the very front of my finger, so the very, very side here. By the way, I refer to this as the front and this as the back. I know that's a little confusing, but as we're going across the instrument, I like to think about this as the front of the note, and maybe that's the back of the note. Now I want you to listen. I'm going to rotate my finger from the front to the back, and I want you to timbrally listen to the change that you get. So you get more snap when you start to rotate or pronate your hand. Now that's something that literally just takes time. You have to practice very slowly, and whatever you choose, I really like to hear that just every single note should be exactly the same, and you should be able to do it at multiple volumes. I lived in New York City for 10 years, and I can tell you that the most valuable part of that was having a neighbor who got annoyed when I practiced. And being able to practice softly is a skill that not only is important for living amongst other people, but also for really honing in on your craft and your technique and making sure that you're getting every mechanical aspect of your relationship with the instrument down to a science. Because if you can do it softly, you can do it loudly. So let's take the volume down and try that exact same thing again and see if we can get exactly similar sounding quarter notes. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to probably use the meat of my finger a little bit more than the front, because while I can play soft with the front of my finger, it sounds a little bit rounder and warmer if I use the middle. Now, do all those sound the same to you? That's kind of the goal. I'll try it for my two-finger users as well, just to see if I can get a sound that way. Now, you may have noticed at the beginning there, I was kind of struggling to hone it in. Those first 4 or 5 didn't quite sound the same. And that's because I just tend to use first finger when I'm doing this kind of exercise or this style of playing. So it's less familiar to me. And so that actually takes me more time to kind of dial it in. But that's the kind of time and attention you have to give this. And it does start with a single note. It does start with scales. It does start with practicing slowly with a metronome and quietly, so that when you do get into a setting, that part is established. The third concept is start to focus more on being where the soloist isn't when you're walking your lines. So if you have a soloist that's playing with you and they're really, really up high and they're really, really going for it, give them that space. Come down a bit and stay in maybe the lower region of the bass. Sure, you can come up and kind of hit notes here and there to join them, but I really like to yin and yang with whoever I'm working with. And sometimes that's the pianist. Sometimes the soloist is just doing their thing, and I want to have that same relationship with the pianist or the guitarist or whoever else is on stage. So now that we're talking about the artistry of bass playing and walking bass lines, I want to start getting into the concept of shape and literally playing counter melodies as opposed to just being a rock and kind of being a support system for whatever instrument is playing. Bass lines are just a series of ups and downs. And I do like to think when I'm playing that I'm trying to vary my lines as much as possible and meet interesting shapes that keep the listener engaged. So if a soloist is playing really, really down low and they're trying to be very tender, I might go very, very high in my register and also match that volume. If a soloist is playing super, super high, that's not really gonna be my moment to get up into thumb position. I'm probably gonna try and dig in on the lower side, because ultimately we wanna kind of match the flow and be able to support them where they're not. So I'm using a metaphorical situation there where the sax player is playing on the other end of those spectrums maybe, and I'm using harmonics and open notes to make those jumps and make those comfortable. So a variety of range is a tool that you have in your tool bag and should be using. Another tip, when you are practicing, try starting each chord on the same exact chord tone. So as you're taking a chorus of, say, the F blues, for that chorus, your first note of each chord progression is going to be the root. And then once you've done that, you can go back and try it with the third, the fifth, the seventh. This is going to force you to kind of just play outside of your normal like shapes that just feel good. If you're forcing yourself to be comfortable starting on every chord tone, then it'll really free you up later. And finally, something else we talk about in the course, really interesting. As bassists, we only play one aspect of the swung eighth feel most of the time, right? But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to feel the swung eighth note. Do, va-do, 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 va-do. And so if you're trying to be more comfortable with swing in general, or playing with a drummer, a new drummer perhaps, try messing around with playing off the beat, just off the beat, and maybe alternating between playing on the beat and off the beat. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoy the course. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you, hear you next time. Take care.